Hello and welcome to my channel, Creative Birth. My name's Rachel and I'm a birth and postnatal doula, and I'm also a home educating mum. We're here today to talk about health from fertility, pregnancy, through parenting your children, even through your own health issues as you go along the journey. So if you're interested in any of those topics, then please hit the like and subscribe to our channel because we'll have plenty more. Today I am joined by special guest June Tranmer, who is an acupuncturist by trade, but so much more. She's helped me with my children already, and I've done a couple of courses with June, really enjoyed them. And I would love for her to introduce herself. So this is June from Wellbeing in York. Hi.
Hi, and thank you for that lovely introduction. It's lovely to be here. I love talking with you, Rachel. We have so many things to talk about, haven't we?
We do.
But well, I'll try and focus right
That's good.
now, and I'll just talk about the things that I do. I did send you a list, and I thought as I made it, I thought this list is getting a bit big. But I have been in practice quite a long time. So I trained originally in Touch for Health to help people learn skills to help themselves at home. And that is so coming to the fore again now. I mean, I've been doing that since the 80s, since my kids were born. And I wanted to learn things that I could do to help them at home. I've always tried to be a natural mom. So I tried to feed them organic as much as possible, even when we were really well. We still, I'm still not flush, but I still hold to that principle that if you have less quantity but better quality, it's better for yourself and for your family. So I think that's my advice to most people. But a lot of people feel they can't. So we're talking about food and feeding yourself while you're pregnant, while you're trying to get pregnant. A lot of nutrients are very important during that journey, and you can't just go eating junk and then swallow the pregnancy vitamins. A lot of people do that, I've found. So I think that yeah, just trying to treat my children always with natural medicines. So I used the Touch for Health with them. And then I went on to study acupuncture. And then I went on to study acupuncture for children. And then I developed my own course in using a mixture of the kinesiology and the acupuncture knowledge. But I really steer away from the needles a lot these days. I just not because they're an issue, but just because I don't feel they're necessarily needed, especially for children.
Oh,
Um, People may not know very much. I don't know who's going to be listening to this, so I'll try and make it very simple and basic and not make assumptions about what people know. But the acupuncture meridians are like the energy pathways in our body of it's our own internal electricity basically, and it does connect to the energy around us and other people around us. And basically, everything has got energy. And I think we're coming into a phase of human awareness right now where people are beginning to understand that a lot more than when I started back in the 80s. And so yeah, I mean, my understanding has grown and developed over that time. And I never stop studying things and learning more stuff because there's just so much fascinating information and new angles to things. I've just recently learned about um, electroculture, it's called,
okay.
or electro gardening, and it's a bit like putting extra energy into the soil to help
Wow.
your plants grow. It's not like acupuncture for your plants, but it is kind of. I did meet a guy years ago who kind of did earth healing, and he did kind of copper rods at very specific places on the earth to
Okay.
help balance the energies. So he
Wow.
called it earth acupuncture in a way, and it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I feel like I learned something from every person who comes to see me. Everybody has information, everybody has their own perspective, and it's like about being open to understanding that. So then I went on to study a lot of different other things. So I learned about crystals, but I haven't studied a full-blown crystal training course. I did one short course. I studied Chinese massage, again, a short course. I studied Egyptian healing, alchemy Sekhem healing with a friend of mine. She developed her own training for that. So, I know other people who do Sekhem, and it is connected to the Egyptian gods and goddesses and things. And so it's got such a lot of potential that I've only scratched the surface. I'd like to do more. I've done level 1. And I've done flower essences. Actually, back in the day, the flower essences were maybe the first thing I did at the same time as the Touch for Health. So I've been doing those. I've been making my own, and now I'm going to start making crystal essences for my patients. I'm not selling these. I'm not trying to say that I'm going to be marketing them at all. I'm making them very specifically to give to my own patients, because I feel like I buy crystals and I go, here, you need a crystal. But I'm thinking, what if I gave them the energy of the crystal in a flower essence type of bottle where they can take it? So I put the crystals in the moonlight, whereas the flowers go in the sunlight, and you make an essence out of that, following Edward Bach's procedures that he started in the 1930s. Fascinating way of working with energy as well. The plants have just got so much energy to give us. The plants we eat, the plants we look at, we get energy from them by looking at them. How much plants cheer everybody up. Trees, I mean, they're just wonderful things. And so, yeah, I talk to trees. There's a tree on my way home from work that I stop and I have a little chat with, put my hand on. If nobody's looking, I give it a hug.
Oh, that's lovely.
I can seriously, I can feel energy coming back from it. It's like it's talking to me. I don't know what it's saying, but it's just a feeling. It's just a lovely feeling.
Would you say that's kind of like grounding then when you are in contact with nature in that way?
Very much so. I mean, there is a lot of talk at the moment in circles that I go in anyway, about grounding. And people are talking a lot about making sure that you walk on the earth. But people like me, who I live in a city and I ride my bike and I come out of my house, my little house, onto the concrete, get on my bike, cycle away, then get off my bike onto concrete, come in my building to go to work. And it was years ago that I just went, oh my goodness, I am not touching the earth. When I was much younger, I felt very cut off from nature if I couldn't see the stars and the moon and the horizon, and and touch the earth. And I think that is something that modern living has, we become detached from nature. So we have to do what we can when we can. And, if we live in cities, we can't always, but we can often find a piece of ground we can go and stand on. If you mind out for the dog who don't want to be standing on that, however natural it might be. We don't want to be standing on that. But yeah, and a lot of people are talking about walking on your bare feet. If you've got your own garden and you know that it's relatively clean, then yeah, you can do that. And it gives you energy. I mean, in Chinese medicine, we talk about drawing energy up from the earth and down from the heavens, the yin and the yang, and then it mixes in us. And we have yin and yang in all of us. And it's about that balance. And that's what I try and do with my people who come to see me, try and help them regain their balance. Because that's all ill health is just falling out of balance. So just get back and we'll be right.
So if someone came to you, how would you know they were in balance? How would that come about?
Yeah, well, I know you asked me before if I do online things, and I do. I do the classes online, and I try and teach, and I do chats with people um online, and try and do consultations and take down the notes. But obviously, it's much better for me to be able to see a person in real life because I get the natural color of their skin tone, and I feel their pulses, and I can see into their eyes more deeply and see the vitality of their overall being.
Yeah.
And I look at their tongue, listen to the pulses. The children aren't that keen on letting you look at their tongue and feel their pulses, but it doesn't matter because you can get a general feel
Hmm.
from them, by the way they behave. So you see them in a room with toys, and you
Yeah.
you actually can observe how they are. So
Wow.
that's really nice. And then I ask questions, and I ask about all different aspects of their life. you know and I said to somebody yesterday who came to me, she came with something very particular, and I said, well, this may not seem like all these questions are related to your particular issue, but I need to know how your sleep is, how your digestion is, what kind of things you like, what are your likes, what are your dislikes, what kind of weather you like, what kind of weather you don't like, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that that's quite important. And then I need to know about medication and
Yes.
supplements that people are taking, because we're trained in understanding the side effects of medication, so we can work on, sometimes people's symptoms are coming from that and not their own
Okay, so it's not
internal
even,
imbalance. It's
yeah,
something
yeah,
coming from outside. So yeah, we look at whether something's coming from inside or from outside, but inside things are so often affected by what's going on around you.
yeah.
Emotional things that have been there for a really long time. We're our body remembers everything that's happened to us.
Wow.
So, that can be an issue, or it can just be quietly sitting there as a body memory. But then sometimes it can end up being causing a problem. You know, um, Somebody came the other day who had surgery when she was younger, and that can have been a trigger for what's been going on now.
Wow.
But we had to I
Gonna
feel a bit
realize.
like a detective looking
Yeah,
into these things. That's what I often say. I feel like a
yeah.
health detective. Yeah.
So this is a really holistic approach then. It's looking at absolutely everything. So when somebody comes to see you, um, it's not necessarily going to be the symptom that they come for that you're going to find the answer to, if that makes sense. Although what you
Yeah.
then do will start a process of healing, I get from what you're saying.
Yes. You can work at it from so many different angles because we're not living in laboratory conditions.
Sure.
And we haven't got just one variable that
Yeah.
we can isolate and look at that and go, okay, well, that thing has caused that effect, because we are influenced by so many things. So we need to look at things. And so that's why I like the kinesiology, because I can ask the body the questions, which
So
is,
what
it's a bit like
Framework.
dowsing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Muscle monitoring. You use a muscle. I use this one on the forearm, and I just ask the body yes or no questions with that. I lean on it, and it either holds or it doesn't hold.
Ah, I think I had someone do something like that when I was testing for allergies, and I had to hold different foods in my hand. And then that's right, she leaned on my arm, and then whether it held or not was showing sort of how severe the intolerance was to that food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we all do it a little bit differently, I guess. I get people to put things on their tummies or
Okay.
on their face, and hold it. And sometimes, yeah, it involves holding different acupuncture points and stuff like that. So yeah, there's different ways to do that. Yeah, we can
Mm.
do that with the kinesiology. Mm.
That's interesting because I think, yeah, allergies is something that comes up a lot, certainly even in the last few years with my youngest children. It's their peer group that seem to be really encountering a lot of allergies that perhaps we didn't see when I was younger and when my older children were younger. I didn't see as much of it. So
Mm.
would you say, is that something that you're seeing a lot of as well?
Yeah, I think there's been just a steady increase in
Hmm.
the amount of chemicals in our environment that are disrupting our balance. That's the
Right.
best way to put it. Um, so yeah, I mean, we've got hormones in our water supply from all the people who are taking hormone replacement therapy
Oh,
of one
wow.
kind or another. We've got chemicals. Some local authorities use fluoride, definitely got chlorine in the water
Yeah.
because they're trying to make it clean. There are ways of making water clean without having to put chemicals in. And I think in the future, we're going to see more of that kind of thing.
Wow.
Hopefully, the flow forms, they've been
Okay.
around for a really long time, at least 100 years, probably longer. Where
That's
you,
something we can
yeah,
do at
it's
home.
hard to describe, but anyway, it's kind of outside the remit of this conversation.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't need to have that many chemicals in our lives. Plug in air fresheners out the window or somewhere. Don't put it, don't dispose of it in a dangerous fashion. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they've discovered that they cause cancer. So, why would you
Wow.
have them in your house?
Yeah.
They've caused cancer in animals, in pets, as well as children and adults. So, there's an awful lot of things, and they're on the increase, it seems. They've been spraying, a lot of um, extra things on our food crops since I was a kid in the 50s.
Right.
And a lot of childhood illnesses are the body's way of trying to clear stuff. That's what actually being ill is. Our skin is our biggest excretory organ, and it's a breathing organ, and it's connected to the lungs in Chinese medicine in terms of the element that it belongs to. And so if you see things coming out on the skin, you think, ah, the body's trying to clear something.
Wow. So that
Hmm.
explains like when you've got a child with asthma or somebody with asthma and they say it's quite often connected with eczema. That didn't make
Absolutely.
any sense to me, but now that you explain it like that,
Yeah.
that's like the body's way of ridding itself of the asthma or dealing with the asthma is to
Dealing
then,
with the things that are causing the asthma.
of course, of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Because and you'll see it the other way around too. If a child has eczema and you put on creams that kind of suppress that,
yes,
then what happens is the toxins that are in, and I don't like using that word, but the things that are in the system that the body's trying to clear that
mm,
way end up going towards the lungs. And so you get extra phlegm and damp in the lungs
wow,
because the body's trying to expel that way.
trying
I
to
mean, it's
expel.
also connected to the large intestine, so things can get expelled that way too, fortunately.
Wow,
But that's the thing is everything's interlinked, isn't it? And
yes,
once you know the way things do that, then it's quite common sense, really, Rachel. Do you know? And I find it really easy to explain to people if I talk about rivers and streams and relationships in that way, the way things flow and how things will always try and find a way out if they're trapped, you
right.
know?
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
fascinating. It's so interesting. Um, and really, it's so important to have these tools and to even know this stuff when you've got children, and especially, now if you're not able to get a doctor's appointment, you've got a child, and you worry, we worry. We've seen it on our group recently, haven't we? We've got mums with new little ones that they're having their first cold, and you just panic because you don't know how they're going to be. You don't know if it's going to turn into an infection. You don't know. So, you know, what do you say? What do you say to a new mum who's, having their baby's having a cold, and
Well,
then
that is the thing. This is where the self-care classes come in because I've been teaching parents as much as I can about the stuff that I've learned from Chinese medicine as well as the kinesiology, so that they can have these skills at home. Because nobody's going to want to bring their child with a cold out to come and see me, and I can't, with the best will in the world, get round to everybody's houses. So
Sure.
we've got to find a way of helping parents take back control and trust themselves. This is what it amounts to, isn't it? People have got to trust themselves to know what to do and how to tell if something is a simple thing and if it requires extra care, because that's what the medical people are there for, is for the real emergencies. But so many people are rushing to the doctor because they don't have that knowledge and they don't trust themselves to be able to handle it. And we've all been separated from our birth families because we all travel and move. And I mean, look at me. My parents went to Canada in the 50s. I came over to England in the 70s. My daughter went traveling in 2011 and never came back. And it's like, this is what we do these days.
Yeah.
We got families just like are fragmented, but some families are very smart and they move around the corner from their relatives and they have a family circle that passes down this kind of knowledge. And this is why I'm trying to write my book, because I had a lovely friend who had that kind of knowledge. Her grandfather was a herbalist in the late 1800s. Her mom was the old wife in the village up near Durham where they lived. And the doctor, this was pre NHS, the doctor consulted her to make potions for people. Then they didn't want drugs, and she would make things according to her dad's recipes. And
Wow.
so my friend has told me some of her stuff, and I'm putting that into my book, along with all these other things that I've learned over the years. Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
brings me to something else that we talked about, wasn't it? Because we're talking about family unit, and obviously my family has moved across the globe as well in different ways. But my grandmother, she did come to England as well, and she was similar in that people where she lived would consult her. She was the third of 14 children, and her job, so everybody had a job, and her job was to look after the babies. That was her job. So when I had my son, I took him to her and I was like, what do I do? What do I do with this baby? And she told me, and she was just like, every single day you massage a baby, you move a baby's arms and legs this way. She couldn't tell me why. And some of the things that I've learned from you, on the courses has been really interesting because it's made suddenly make sense to me, like why we would move a baby in this way and why we would do these exercises with babies. And she couldn't imagine. It's funny because we're told not to bath our children every day now, which we're newborns. And there's lots of evidence behind that as well in terms of like keeping the skin, not drying out the skin and keeping the vernix on the skin. But grandma wouldn't hear of that. It was you bathed and oiled the baby every single day, and it was part of keeping the baby healthy. It's almost like it made me think about when you see a mum cat and she licks her kitten all over, and it's almost like it's stimulating the growth of the child. She taught me that you know how there's a lot, I don't know if you've come across this, but when I was working in a osteopath clinic, I noticed that a lot of babies came in with very flat heads.
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and she told me that you were supposed to massage your baby's head round. You had to mold it, otherwise it would go flat. So these are just little things that they had passed down through the generations of looking after babies and children. But they didn't know the science behind it. This was just what you did. This is how you looked after a child. And certain times, if I brought my children to her when they were older as well, if they had stomach upsets, and she would massage the stomach in a certain way. And she said, but everything has to come out. So you have to massage down. But if they've got this problem, then you massage this way. And it was so interesting. So she brought a lot of that knowledge. And I think when you talk about being in touch and having that confidence, I think for me, that was where mine came from, was to know that without having a medical system, certainly she didn't, she was able to bring about a lot of health for these children. And I think we have lost that, which is, like you say, it's such a shame um because we're not connected with our families and we do move around, and the knowledge has been lost over time. So I think that that is kind of a mission now, isn't it, to bring that back, bring back the knowledge of how things work. And we also now have the added explanation, scientific explanations as to why these things work. So it's really
Mhm.
interesting.
Yes. I know I've heard of a thing called adopt a granny.
Oh,
And
wow.
where people who don't have a grandma find someone in their neighborhood
Oh,
who will stand in as their adopted granny, and adopted aunties, and we can all be each other's family. We don't need to have our birth family around us. We can, I mean, you created a wonderful group that is like a family. People are really trusting of each other in there and
yeah.
sharing so much lovely information, and it's coming in such a lot of ways. Everybody's got slightly different angles on things. It's absolutely fascinating. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
And that's, that's one great thing about the internet and about having all this technology is being able to reach your phone and find somebody who knows something that
Hmm.
you can try. So I definitely love that about the group. I've noticed people asking lots of questions about, my child's got this or I'm going through that. What can I do? And yeah, it's really nice to have that community, and I hope that builds. We're able to kind of support each other going forward.
Yeah, because you have a few people like myself who have trained in things and who maybe know a little bit more, but that doesn't negate the fact that people have knowledge that from their own experiences, and that's valid too. And I really don't want us to be in this realm of you have to ask an expert,
Right,
because
right.
you have to, you can have lots of knowledge, but if you don't come from your heart, and if you don't feel what that person really needs from you, you're
Yeah,
busy just telling them stuff. And I'm the superior being in some
yeah,
way, and you have to listen to me. Well, we've had enough of that, haven't we?
definitely.
Nobody needs more of that kind
Right.
of patronizing attitude. So we need to come
Humility.
from our hearts more and
Yeah,
share what we've got. And if people want more, they'll ask more, or they'll ask someone else. And we have
yeah,
to, kind of let that happen.
yeah. And also, I noticed, I think it was you or somebody else who had a bit more training, was able to filter out some myths that come through in the group. So sometimes, like, there's little posts going around going, use this for this, use that for that. And it's really helpful to have
Yeah.
someone with a bit of knowledge to sit there and go, actually, this isn't correct.
I,
Because
I, I have
so
I've
much
been known to do that.
good. No, but that's really helpful
Yeah.
because again, like, people we're searching for the answers, and to have somebody who's got an answer to say, actually,
Yeah.
it's more like this, that's really helpful as well. So it's that little bit of guidance that like a family,
It
that's really
is, it is. And I try always to be positive. Um,
yeah,
so, like with the pregnant moms, I mean, I love helping someone balance their hormones, and then they're able to get pregnant because, like we were just saying earlier on, there are so many hormone disruptors in the atmosphere, other people's hormones and plastics and plug-in air fresheners and, all the stuff in the food and all these things. They're
yeah,
busy destabilizing. Um, yeah, I mean, this one lady who I'm seeing right now, um, you know, she had quite a few vaccines when she was younger, and but I can balance those to help her be more receptive to being a mom. So, it's I think that's the lovely thing about the job. Nothing is set in stone, and we are constantly changing and evolving. So things disrupt us, but they can also be moved on.
mm. And that's really interesting because I also, so I work in like postnatal with postnatal parents. I work with parents who've been through trauma as well. And interestingly, something that's come up recently is a mum who felt that through the experience of going through trauma, she has become aware of actually where her intuition was correct. So there was times where she was challenged during her story, and actually, she's discovered when sharing it back and going over it that she stood in her intuition at several points that made a huge difference for her. And she said that before she hadn't she hadn't been aware of her instincts in that way, and they came into play. Um, and for a lot of mums who have been through trauma, it's very difficult for them to become pregnant again. And looking at the story and realizing, where what was true for them and where their truth comes from is so, so important. So just like you're saying, we've got to balance the plastics and the hormones. We've also got to balance the experiences, that even if it's not it's not our past trauma, it could be hearing a friend's trauma that's put us in
Yeah.
this state of, I don't, how do I know what's right? So having this backup and this support helps us to follow then our intuition and try things and see what works for us and our family.
Hmm.
Really
Hmm.
important.
That's right. That's right. And then so many people are so desperate to become pregnant right now. I mean, this has been going on for a number of years. It's not just recently, but it's become increased. The numbers have increased recently, and so many people are turning to IVF. Now, acupuncture has been now well documented that it can help alongside IVF, but I just so wish that people wouldn't turn to that first, that they would try a natural route first, because there are other things besides acupuncture that can help that I don't do, like aromatherapy and reflexology, homeopathy, even osteopathy and chiropractic to help rebalance things. There's so many different ways to rebalance things and have a nice natural conception and then a lovely natural pregnancy. So, it's a bit of my mission to help women and their partners to be able to do that as much as possible. And then of course, helping with the birth and helping that, because I've been at several births over the years using acupuncture and kinesiology to help the woman stay centered and to help keep things flowing and all the different things that we can do. Although, the more I know, the more I feel like we should not do very much at all. But if someone's finding things a struggle, and you know the nice thing is that I know quite a bit about positioning and contractions and all that kind of stuff and the technical stuff, and I don't have to actually do something, but I can suggest helpful things that they can do. So again, it's not taking the woman's power away during the labor, because I've seen so many beautiful videos recently of women being so amazing at giving birth, and to be able to allow themselves to be filmed and to have that go on social media. That is so brave. It's so
Isn't it?
brave. Or
Yeah.
else it's completely crazy. I'm not sure. It's maybe a bit of both. I don't know, but it inspires other women, I think.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I think what you've described there and what that shows as well, like, I mean, I could talk about birth all day, as you know, but what that shows is a glimpse into a world that is so, so private, because actually birth, when it's observed and when um it's sort of a clinical setting, is so very different than birth that is in a woman's own space or in a family space. Um, it it doesn't, it's almost not even the same process. It's the same process, but it's not the same process. And unfortunately for people trained in a clinical setting, they're not able to see this side of things, because you know as soon as somebody steps into a clinical setting, the hormones change, um, our our whole being changes.
Yes.
So I think what you're saying there is really so important, because we need to be able to see what really does happen, and to be able to share your experience like that is very, very educational, very helpful for the whole of society going forward. Like I really feel like everything starts at birth. That's my take on things. I feel like when we have a good birth, we take different chances, we try different experiences as a mother, as a parent. When we have a difficult experience, we feel so disempowered. We feel like we need to seek a lot of more outside help than we may have done had our birth gone differently. So I feel like, yeah, fertility, birth, raising children, it's so, so important for going forward for all of
For
us.
the child too, to have that experience of coming into the world in as gentle and peaceful a way as possible. The first breath is so important. And I'm seeing more and more people and young people who don't know how to breathe properly. It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, there are actually 5 diaphragms in the body that are all kind of interconnected,
Okay.
not directly physically, but very close. Their attachments are very close. But they have to work in harmony, and they will work in harmony if a person is balanced. But if
Wow.
they get put out of balance by, forceps deliveries or a, twisted neck or sudden, expulsion, and their first breath is like, oh my God, what am I doing here? That kind of thing that happens. Or, cords being cut too soon and the shock of that makes them kind of gasp as well, because it's a shock again to the little
So what's
person.
a first breath? What's an ideal first breath? Can you describe that?
Wow, I don't know, because I don't know that I've ever seen it. But
Wow.
ideally, it would be a baby coming to a mom who is birthing safely, where she feels calm, where the room is calm, where there's lot, I mean, because there's usually other people around. So it's kind of, there's an energy in the room, isn't there?
For
And
sure.
you've
Yeah.
seen that, and it's everybody's in this kind of shared space of loveliness.
Yeah.
And so that's the ideal. And then they have a gentle exit, and they're allowed to lie on their mom's tummy, and then the placenta is delivered still attached, and all those things. And that the crawl, the breast
Oh,
crawl, it
yes.
is just amazing. And I think they're getting their breath all that time, and they're just harmonizing their breath with their mom as
Yes.
well. And so the mom needs to be breathing in a nice rhythmical way, but there is so little of that goes on.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I've had two loud criers. Um, and it's interesting because one was a free birth and one was a birth with a midwife, and two very quiet babies, and again, one with a midwife and one without. And of the two quiet babies, it's really interesting because their whole persona is very much more mellow, I'd say, than the other two. Um, I didn't really put it down to their first breath, but I did notice and I did wonder whether it's because they were born calmly, but then all four of them were born relatively in calm. But two of them were just, they didn't do this great big scream and limbs going everywhere and everything like that. They didn't do that. They just, it almost like my daughter, I could almost imagine her going, oh, hello.
Yes, yes.
And my son was just like, oh, okay then. So you could
Yeah.
almost sense their personality straight away from that
It's
first.
amazing, isn't it? And of course, I think they bring their own personality like that with them. And so whatever happens for them is probably part of their life experience. And we don't need to regret and feel like something went wrong if it doesn't be all calm and peaceful, because
Sure.
they will overcome part of that experience, hopefully, and they will learn from it, and go on like all the rest of their life, learning from the difficulties, like we're saying before. The traumas that people have had are part of their life experience. They're in their bodies, but they're part of our learning. So we go on throughout our lives. But I can see how we can mend this, even if at birth that it's not that great. It's all right, because we can balance it up again. And things for mom, like I've helped moms who had mastitis, and help them encourage the breast milk to flow, and that kind of thing. Back pain, all those kind of things that they can't always do by themselves.
Mm.
I mean, we can give back a lot of power to a person to manage their own health and well-being. Sometimes you do just need another person.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and I was talking to a chiropractor the other day, a McTimony chiropractor, and there's a technique that they do that is very, very gentle on the roof of the mouth of a child who might be having trouble getting the rhythm of their breathing. And this is the first time I've heard of this. So this is, I
I've
say, like you
actually
say,
seen that
just
on
really
your
interesting. Yeah,
yeah, I've
really
seen
interesting.
that done by it was an osteopath. And she put her finger in and did something to the roof of his mouth. I didn't know what she was doing at the time, but
Nothing much. They hold their finger there and it just bounces out. It's amazing.
it's
Amazing.
wow,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. And I just wanted to pick up on something you just said as well, is that, sometimes it takes another person. And we said this before we started recording, didn't we? It's just sometimes somebody just needs to chat. It's not just the experience of what's happening to the body, it's also having somebody that is hearing them and validating them as well. So it's all part of the treatment, I guess, is having another person available to you.
Yes. Yes. And to feel you have somebody you can trust who's
Yes,
going to tell you the honest truth about things, who's
yes,
not going to flannel you and bamboozle you
yeah,
and, tell you that you're stupid or any of those type of things.
yeah,
You don't even have to say it out loud. People sense it. If someone is with you and that they're thinking that you're an idiot, it's happened to me a lot. They've made prejudgments about what I do, and that it
yes,
doesn't matter what I say, they're going to continue to think that. So, I don't waste my time with those people anymore. I just talk to people who I know are open to hearing what I've got to say.
yeah.
Like
So do you
you.
find, yeah, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
love
I can listen
spending
to you
time
all
with you.
day. Do you find that certain people are then drawn to you on that? Do you feel like,
Yeah, it's really interesting how people appear in this room because like yesterday I had three new patients. One who came, I don't like to call them patients, new people. Uh, it's old habits. We've been calling them patients for donkey's years. Um, One of them was a son of a friend of mine, and she
oh,
asked me if I thought I could help him, and I said yeah. And then another one was someone I'd known a number of years ago, and someone recommended that she come and see me. And then the third one is somebody who found me online. But I most of the time I don't really do a lot of advertising. People just find you. They somehow, and if your energy is up and you're good in a good place, they
yeah,
find you better because your little light is shining, I believe. And if you're feeling a bit where, then things get quieter again and
yeah.
people give you space so that you can do your own healing. And we do need to look after ourselves. That's very important.
That's a really good way to go with this. Like how does a healer heal themselves? What needs to happen there? And especially a parent as well who's looking after children, working, doing other things, like what how do we
Yeah.
look after ourselves?
Because so often mums have got their focus of attention out and
Yeah,
not in.
yeah, yeah,
And we maybe don't hear the signals that your body's giving to you saying, hello, something's not quite right here. Never mind. I've got to go and look after the babies.
yeah. That's right.
Shush.
Somebody else is
Stop
crying.
telling me stuff I don't need to hear right now. And
Yeah,
so we can do this. We can override the messages. Like we can override the messages that are telling us to drink water. Sorry about the noise. There's some trucks outside. My office
couldn't
is
hear it because I've got a helicopter going around over me.
okay. Sound effects.
Yes, some
Yeah.
background noise going
I've
on.
got the window open. I should maybe have shut it, but anyway, they've gone past now. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I think it's a great skill to be able to just put stuff on one side while we have to deal with something else that's
Yeah.
urgent.
Yeah.
But we need to go back and pick it up and
Yeah.
listen to our own inner voice and just check with ourselves once a day, or maybe more often. How am I doing? What do I need now? And listen to our intuition about these things, and then ask for help. It's, I mean, yeah, I get help as much as I can.
Yeah. And
Whenever
I
there's
feel
a
like,
chance to have some treatment, I'll have it.
yeah, yeah. And it's almost like we've been conditioned. And I don't know about, you know, your generation, similar, for my age, we're conditioned like not to ask for help. Like, you're a woman, you can do everything, you should be. And I find that, like, personally, I've really battled. That's something I've battled with. I haven't had a lot of support while I've had young children. And yeah, I think that's really hard on mums, is to, where do I find support? And which is exactly why I set up these groups,
Mhm.
to find, go and find some support, even if it's a message or two. But yeah, what do you recommend? How do we find that inner voice and go, how do we hear what our body needs?
Oh, well, it's hard to find some quiet time when
Yeah,
you've got kids, but try and find some quiet time to just sit and not feel like the jobs are impinging on that. Just stop for a little bit and just go, okay, I mean, meditation has never been my forte, but I think as I get older, it's easier to do. And I think I would recommend people just doing that, just sitting still and letting whatever comes up. I don't think it's really that helpful to say to people, empty your mind, because it's really hard to do.
yeah.
Guided meditation is sometimes much better because that can get you into a really calm place. And there's loads of those online or in
So, like,
groups. There's
even a
people.
short guided meditation might help. And something we mentioned, I can't remember if it was on the recording or maybe just before, grounding as well. Did you mention maybe walking outside barefoot and taking a moment?
Yes, I did. And
Yes.
talking to trees
Yes.
because
Planting something.
it does help. It really does help.
Yeah.
You feel the earth under your feet, and a living plant that has got a vibration, has got an energy, and we now know that trees talk to each other. Now, this
Yeah.
particular tree on my way home that I stop and talk to every now and again, it's got to have its roots somewhere that are going towards these other two trees that are across the road. I'm
Okay.
sure of it.
Yeah.
But gosh, it's a long way because there's this whole road between them. But
Right.
they talk to each other. It's been proven now. So
That they send messages through the forest, don't they? Of
yes,
what's,
they do through their
yeah, I read
roots.
that.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
incredible. So
Amazing.
yeah, and so I mean, I think if we can just tap into that a little bit, and
Yes.
then know who is in our community that we can go to, and this is where I have to mention the PHA hubs.
Please do.
we have
Yes.
we have the
Yes.
People's Health Alliance hubs where people can go and access free or donation based treatments from practitioners. So and self-care classes like mine and things like that. So find your local groups and join them and get involved and bring your kids, because we want to have family hubs. We don't want just,
Yeah.
older people, but all ages, because I think we need a mix. And we've become separated into ghettos by age, and that's not right. That's
No.
not right. Older people love when kids come into care homes and talk to them. And kids get so much out of it too. And so in our natural communities, we should have more of that, intentional living
Yeah.
in multi-generational communities, I think is
Yeah.
definitely the way forward. Because then you would find your aunties and your grandmothers who have information and
You
knowledge to
remember. Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
Yes. And the
Yeah.
granddads. let's not just talk about the women,
Absolutely.
but yeah.
Absolutely, and learning the trades that we touched on home education earlier, didn't we, as well? And just learning the trades that we didn't. I mean, certainly I didn't learn in school. I don't know what you learned in school. I didn't learn anything about planting anything or fixing things or sewing things or making things. I had no idea. In fact, last night I posted on the group, and you might have seen, about linen and about the energetic properties of using linen and why they use linen in hospital beds. And we're using fabrics that we don't know anything about. I wouldn't have had a clue. I wouldn't know. I certainly wouldn't have learned these things in school. So if you've got grandmas and grandpas who have worked with these materials and understand more about planting, about building, about fixing, mending, creating, it's exactly what you're saying, is we need to
Yeah,
have these communities where people have memories of how to do things and people can teach each other. So
yeah, absolutely.
so
Absolutely. Oh, the future is beautiful, isn't
it
it?
is. It is. I feel like we've put the world to rights
We
today.
have.
I love
Oh,
it.
we could probably go on for ages, but I bet this is probably about time to wrap it up, or people will not have the patience
So
to listen to it all.
I think maybe we can do another one. And
Yeah.
if anybody, I think what I would love to say as well is if people have questions for June, how can they find you, June?
Right. Well, I've got a Telegram channel. Um, I can pop that in the chat.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
Would that
comments.
make
We'll put it
sense?
in the description box underneath the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got a website. And I'm always happy for people to send me messages to my phone. And
Brilliant.
that's my Telegram channel. And my website is just junetranmer.co.uk.
Thank you.
And my phone number
It's okay.
is,
We'll put that under in the description box when we put it up on
yeah.
YouTube. And your book that you're writing. Did you want to mention?
Ah, yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, one day I will get this done. I have a friend who's doing publishing. And so this is now, it feels like it's the right time to do this. And I'm feeling braver at um, saying what I need to say. And I've
Brilliant.
got enough accumulated knowledge. I've been trying to write it for about 20 years.
You definitely have the knowledge. I always think, right, if I need to know something, I'll go to June because you just have such a wealth and it's from so many different areas of wealth of knowledge. And it's really, really lovely to have you on the group and be able to chat with you like this.
Oh, thank you. Well, if I don't know something, I often can find where to find information as well. So,
Perfect.
I always say I don't know, but I know somebody who does.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's what we all
Yeah.
need. Well, thank you so much, June. I really appreciate you taking
Okay.
the time to chat with us today.
Well,
And
that's lovely.
I'm sure that we'll see you again. You can find June on our Telegram group on Creative Birth, Creative Parenting as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it will be great. So please like and subscribe to our channel. And we'll see you in the next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Now.